On June 24, 1944, Lieutenant Commander Richard O'Kane found himself 150 miles southwest of Kagoshima, Japan, peering through the periscope in USS Tang's control room. The scene before him was one that filled his veins with a cold thrill of anticipation and excitement. 6 huge cargo vessels, escorted by 16 warships, made up the largest convoy he had encountered during 3 combat patrols. Through the lens of the periscope, O'Kane could see the merchant ships packed with soldiers, supplies, and equipment vital to Japan's rapidly deteriorating Pacific defenses. Behind him in the submarine's control room, his crew sat silently awaiting orders. They had been tracking this convoy for 4 hours, carefully maneuvering Tang into an optimal position for their attack. The sub was armed with 24 torpedoes, each weighing 3,000 pounds and equipped with warheads capable of splitting a ship in 2. O'Kane's mind raced through the necessary calculations: angle, speed, distance, depth. He had honed his skills under Commander Dudley Morton on USS Wahoo, where audacity and precision were combined to create one of the most formidable submarine commanders in the Pacific. Now, as captain of Tang, O'Kane was demonstrating that he had surpassed even his legendary mentor. The Japanese Navy remained unaware, their intelligence unable to comprehend the advancements made by American submarines despite mounting evidence. American boats were more advanced than ever before, and torpedoes, which had previously been plagued with failures, now worked perfectly. Commanders like O'Kane had devised tactics that transformed submarines from solitary hunters into efficient convoy destroyers. The mathematics of Japan's defeat were being written not in surface battles, but in the murky depths where stealthy predators lurked and struck their targets. Tang's journey to this moment began 9 months earlier at Mare Island Naval Shipyard in Vallejo, California. The keel was laid on January 15, 1943, as America's industrial capacity churned out submarines with an efficiency that seemed impossible just 2 years prior. By August 17th, Tang slid into the water, measuring 3 feet and 10 inches in length and displacing 526 tons when surfaced and 424 tons when submerged. She was a formidable Balao-class submarine. The Balao-class epitomized the cutting edge of American submarine design, with hulls constructed from high, tensile steel that allowed them to dive to depths exceeding 438 feet, far deeper than earlier models. The ability to dive deep provided commanders such as O'Kane with a crucial tactical edge. Japanese destroyers often deployed depth charges, but Balao-class submarines could descend beyond the range of these weapons, typically reaching depths exceeding 300 feet, where earlier fleet subs were more vulnerable to persistent escort vessels. Equipped with 10 torpedo tubes, 6 in front and 4 at the rear, the submarines possessed formidable offensive capabilities. The forward tubes were arranged in 2 levels, enabling rapid salvo launches from 3 upper and 3 lower positions. Meanwhile, the aft tubes allowed for simultaneous engagement of targets while maneuvering away, transforming retreat into an aggressive counterattack. Each torpedo weighed 354 pounds with a warhead containing 575 pounds of Torpex explosive, capable of striking at distances greater than 6,000 yards. A total complement of 24 torpedoes provided sufficient ammunition for repeated assaults before needing to return to base. Powered by diesel-electric engines, the submarines achieved surface speeds up to 20.25 knots and submerged speeds of 8.73 knots. On the surface, 4 diesel engines propelled the vessel while simultaneously charging large battery banks. When diving, electric motors utilized these batteries for silent operation at low speeds, sustaining underwater operations for up to 48 hours without noise emissions. This propulsion system offered tactical versatility, allowing submarines to surge ahead of convoys on the surface, submerge undetected, launch attacks silently from below, and quickly resurface to flee at high speed. Moreover, Balao-class submarines could operate continuously for 75 days without refueling, a capability that enabled them to patrol Japanese home waters after transiting from Pearl Harbor. With a cruising range of 11,000 miles at 10 knots on the surface, these vessels had extensive operational reach across the Pacific Ocean. Carrying supplies sufficient for 90-day patrols, they could sustain a crew of 87 men in hostile environments. The blend of long-range capabilities, destructive firepower, and extended endurance made Balao-class submarines ideal weapons for disrupting Japan's maritime supply chains. On October 15, 1943, the submarine Tang was commissioned with Lieutenant Commander Richard Hetherington Owen at the helm. At age 32, Okan had graduated from the Naval Academy in 1934. For the past year, he served as executive officer aboard USS WWII under Morton's command, contributing to 5 war patrols during which they sank 20 ships. When Morton led WWII on her 6th patrol in October 1943, Okan was busy preparing Tang for commissioning. Just 4 days before Tang entered service, WWII met its tragic fate when it was sunk with all hands lost in the Balao-class Strait. Morton's death deeply affected Okan, but also strengthened his resolve to carry on with his mentor's aggressive tactics. The distinction between Okan and Morton lay in their approach. While Morton embodied pure aggression, charging into convoys with reckless bravery, Okan combined that same boldness with meticulous calculation. He rigorously trained his crew in periscope recognition, range estimation, and tactical coordination. Recognizing Tang's near invisibility on moonless nights due to her low profile and dark paint, he devised innovative methods for silent drifting without engine noise, allowing the submarine to track convoys undetected. Each innovation aimed at maximizing success while minimizing risk of detection. By January 8, 1944, Tang had completed all shakedown cruise and training exercises and was ready for combat duty at Pearl Harbor. The Pacific Submarine Force's victory over the disastrous torpedo failures that had plagued operations since the war's outset marked a critical development in the Pacific War. These issues with the Mark 14 torpedo included 3 separate defects: an improperly calibrated depth control mechanism causing torpedoes to run 10 feet deeper than intended, and a contact exploder that frequently failed to detonate upon impact. Torpedoes were designed to strike a ship's hull and either bounce off without detonating or break apart upon impact. Additionally, the magnetic influence exploder was intended to explode beneath a vessel's keel, breaking its spine, but often malfunctioned by prematurely detonating or failing to go off due to fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. These issues plagued American submarines from December 1941 until September 1943. Submarine commanders observed their torpedoes hitting targets but saw no damage inflicted on the ships. The vessels would continue undamaged while submarines submerged to evade counterattacks. Each patrol resulted in reports of torpedo malfunctions. The Bureau of Ordnance, which was responsible for developing these weapons, maintained that there were no flaws with the equipment and accused submarine crews of poor marksmanship. This stance held firm even when faced with substantial evidence from combat reports. Admiral Charles Lockwood, Commander Submarines Pacific, ultimately compelled a resolution by conducting systematic tests. When submarines fired torpedoes at nets suspended at predetermined depths, it was proven that there were issues with depth control. Testing against cliff faces revealed failure rates exceeding 70% for contact exploders. These trials in mid-1943 forced the Bureau of Ordnance to admit the defects and begin implementing solutions. By late 1943, improvements had been made to both the depth control systems and the contact exploders, while magnetic exploders were deactivated altogether. For the first time since the war began, American submarines now had dependable weapons at their disposal. This breakthrough dramatically transformed submarine warfare. In 1942, despite numerous attacks, submarines achieved only modest success. By 1943, with partially corrected torpedoes, sinking rates improved but were still inconsistent. However, in 1944, once the torpedoes were fully functional, American submarines became the most deadly anti-shipping force ever seen. The submarine Tang entered service at precisely the right moment, equipped with operational torpedoes and under the command of a bold officer trained in contemporary tactics. This combination proved to be extremely effective. On January 22, 1944, Tang embarked from Pearl Harbor for her inaugural wartime mission in the Carolina and Mariana Island chains. Her first challenge arose on February 17th, when she detected a convoy comprising 2 freighters accompanied by 5 smaller vessels. As Tang approached to launch an attack, an escort vessel suddenly appeared at a distance of 7,000 yards, moving rapidly towards her. O'Kane ordered the submarine to dive deeper. The enemy dropped 5 depth charges near Tang, shaking the hull but causing no damage. Once the threat had passed and the escort departed, Tang resurfaced and continued her pursuit. At a range of 500 yards, O'Kane launched 4 torpedoes at one of the freighters. 3 of them struck the Gayotan Maru amidships, sinking the 800-ton vessel within minutes. 5 days later, Tang intercepted another convoy during the night. After maneuvering to a distance of 500 yards, O'Kane fired a precise volley that hit Fukuyamaru, causing it to explode in multiple detonations and breaking apart. For 2 more hours, Tang followed the convoy before initiating another attack with 4 torpedoes aimed at Yamashimo Moru. The ship disintegrated in a massive explosion that lit up the night sky. Survivors later reported that its cargo of ammunition had ignited upon impact, exacerbating the torpedo damage. By the conclusion of her first patrol, Tang had expended all 24 torpedoes and successfully hit 16 targets. She was credited with sinking 5 ships, totaling around 18,000 tons. The Navy recognized the crew's achievements by awarding them the Submarine Combat Patrol Insignia, a distinction reserved for submarines that sank at least 1 enemy vessel. O'Kane received his first Navy Cross. Tang commenced her second patrol on March 16, 1944, operating in the vicinity of Palau Islands, Davao Gulf, and the approaches to Truk. She established 5 surface contacts but did not get a chance to engage in combat. Instead, Tang was tasked with lifeguard duty near True during American carrier strikes on the heavily fortified Japanese base. This assignment turned out to be just as crucial as any combat patrol. On April 29, 1944, U.S. carrier aircraft launched extensive raids against TR. Many planes were shot down and their pilots parachuted into the lagoon or open sea. Tang positioned herself near the ATL to rescue these downed aviators. Over the next 3 days, O'Kane and his crew rescued 22 airmen from the water, including 9 picked up by a Vorta S-2U Kingfisher floatplane that landed in Truk Lagoon to recover them. The overloaded Kingfisher could not take off again, so Tang surfaced nearby, took on board the pilots, and watched as the empty plane was destroyed to prevent capture. This rescue mission set a record and earned Tang's crew a Presidential Unit Citation. More importantly, it highlighted O'Kane's willingness to put his boat and crew at risk for missions beyond just destroying enemy vessels. On May 15th, Tang returned to base without firing any torpedoes, but having accomplished one of the war's most heroic rescue operations. During her 3rd war patrol, Tang had conducted what would become the most devastating single submarine deployment against Japanese shipping during World War II. O'Kane requested reassignment to the East China Sea and Yellow Sea, regions where submarines faced great risks due to proximity to Japanese-controlled territory but offered rich hunting grounds for convoys moving between Japan and mainland Asia. Tang departed Pearl Harbor on June 8, 1944, loaded with 24 Mark 18 electric torpedoes, which ran silently on battery power rather than compressed air, making them nearly impossible to track back to their source. The Yellow Sea in the summer of 1944 was a prime hunting ground for American submarines. Japan's merchant fleet, already decimated by 2 years of submarine attacks, had been forced into larger convoys with more escorts as defensive measures. However, these larger and better protected convoys actually made them easier targets for U.S. submarines equipped with radar. The Imperial Japanese Navy's preoccupation with offensive operations and battleship warfare led to a significant neglect of anti-submarine defense strategies. Escort ships were scarce, inadequately outfitted, and overseen by officers whose training focused predominantly on surface combat rather than convoy protection. This failure was particularly perplexing for an island nation heavily reliant on maritime trade. In contrast, Britain, grappling with submarine threats in the Atlantic, committed substantial resources to protecting convoys, developed advanced tactics, and constructed hundreds of escort vessels. Japan did not take similar measures. The Imperial Japanese Navy perceived submarines primarily as fleet scouts rather than a serious threat to merchant shipping, considering convoy protection an unglamorous defensive task unworthy of top-tier officers and modern equipment. This mindset, coupled with the Navy's obsession with decisive surface engagements, left commercial vessels highly vulnerable. Japan established the Grand Escort Command in November 1943 as a belated effort to organize convoy protection, but it was given mostly obsolete destroyers, poorly trained crews, and insufficient resources. Despite requests for 360 anti-submarine frigates, only 40 were supplied, which lacked modern sonar systems and effective depth charges. They also operated without air support or coordinated tactics. American submarines equipped with radar could detect convoys at night from a distance of 15 miles. In contrast, Japanese escorts, using outdated listening devices, could only identify submarines within a range of less than 2,000 yards, often too late to prevent attacks. Furthermore, Japanese anti-submarine doctrine prioritized aggressive counterattacks against enemy submarines rather than safeguarding the convoy itself. Escorts would chase away attacking submarines instead of staying with the convoy, leaving it exposed to follow up attacks by other submarines in Bikayot. American submarine commanders exploited this vulnerability using tactics where one submarine would draw off escorts while others moved in to finish off the convoy. Tang operated independently but assumed Japanese escorts would pursue her after an attack, exposing the damaged convoy to further threats. Japan's merchant ship production could not keep up with the losses sustained. In 1944, American submarines were sinking more than twice as many vessels each year compared to Japan's annual shipbuilding capacity of around 1 million tons. This relentless pace left Japan struggling to maintain its maritime capabilities, with the merchant fleet continuously shrinking every month. By mid-1944, essential resources such as oil and food could no longer reach Japanese industries and urban centers in adequate amounts due to the submarine blockade. The effectiveness of this underwater assault surpassed that of any surface-based operations. On June 24th, southwest of Kagoshima, radar on board the USS Tang picked up a large convoy consisting of 6 sizable ships escorted by 16 vessels. Okine guided the Tang through intricate maneuvers for 4 hours, utilizing its superior speed to outmaneuver and position itself ahead of the convoy before submerging into ambush mode. As night fell, Okine brought the submarine to periscope depth, aligning it for a surface attack. The convoy was sailing in 2 columns directly towards Tang. At 200 hours, Okine gave the order to fire. 3 torpedoes were launched at the nearest ship in the lead column, followed by another 3 targeting a second vessel in the far column. The torpedoes struck true and caused massive explosions across the convoy. Tang submerged deeply to evade retaliatory depth charges dropped by confused escort vessels. When resurfacing half an hour later, Okine anticipated seeing 2 sinking ships. However, the scene revealed 4 vessels either burning, listing, or stationary in the water. Post-war analysis of Japanese records provided a clear picture of what had transpired. 3 torpedoes aimed at a distant convoy hit 3 separate ships. Due to the tight formation of the fleet, multiple targets were available for the torpedoes running at a 6-foot depth. Tamahoko Maru, Taina Maru, Nasuon Maru, and Kenichi Maru, with a combined tonnage exceeding 16,000 tons, all sank that night. This single attack by an American submarine was the most successful in the entire war, sinking 4 ships with just 1 salvo of torpedoes. Tang fired 6 torpedoes, destroying 4 vessels in total. The toll on Japan's naval capacity and resources was immense. Each ship had taken months to construct and carried vital cargo for their war effort. Their rapid demise highlighted the significant disparity between Japanese shipbuilding capabilities and American submarine efficiency. 6 days later, on June 30th, Tang encountered the unescorted cargo vessel Nikin Maru traveling from Kyushu to Dean. Okine surfaced and began pursuing Nikin Maru, firing 2 torpedoes that missed their mark. Recognizing he was under attack, Nikin Maru's captain initiated zigzagging maneuvers and requested air support. To evade depth charges dropped by a patrolling aircraft, Tang dove deep into the water before resurfacing at nightfall to continue its pursuit. For 6 hours, Tang chased the fleeing freighter across the Yellow Sea. At 0200 hours on July 1st, when O'Kane was within 750 yards of Nikinmaru, a torpedo from the stern tubes was launched and struck the vessel amidships, splitting it in two. The cargo ship sank within 3 minutes, taking over 3,000 Japanese soldiers with it as they were trapped below deck by the impact. This loss equated to an entire regiment wiped out in mere seconds. On the morning of July 1st, a lookout on board the submarine Tang detected a tanker and a freighter traveling together. O'Kane adjusted course for an attack and launched torpedoes that sank the Tiun Maru No. 2. The Takuri Maru No. 1, carrying fuel oil, managed to escape at full speed as Tang pursued throughout the day, tracing its erratic movements. Once darkness fell, O'Kane positioned Tang within striking range and fired 2 more torpedoes at the fleeing tanker. Both hit their mark, causing an enormous explosion due to ignited aviation fuel. The fiery aftermath was visible for nearly 20 miles. On July 4th, Tang initiated a dawn assault on a freighter hugging the shoreline. O'Kane maneuvered them into position, but the shallow waters caused scraping along the seabed and threatened grounding of the submarine. After backing off, he fired 3 torpedoes with 2 direct hits as the target began to sink. A 6886-ton cargo ship called Asukazan Maru was now sinking rapidly. Fishing vessels rushed in to rescue survivors while Tang retreated to deeper waters. Over the subsequent 2 days near Darren, Tang sank another pair of cargo ships. By the end of her 3rd patrol, she had destroyed a total of 10 enemy vessels, confirmed by Japanese records later on. This made her the most successful American submarine during World War II, with 10 out of 10 attacks succeeding and annihilating 3,961 tons of shipping. On July 14th, Tang returned to Pearl Harbor after exhausting all torpedoes, but leaving a legacy of unmatched performance. The Navy praised Oka and his crew for their aggressive tactics and exceptional skill in submarine warfare, operating amidst intense patrols, penetrating convoy defenses, and sinking ships at an alarming rate had struck fear into the Japanese merchant fleet. Japanese naval intelligence noted the perilous state of convoys transiting the Yellow Sea based on shipping losses, but lacked sufficient resources to provide adequate protection. During her 4th war patrol from July 31st to September 3rd, 1944, Tang ventured into one of the most hazardous areas in the Pacific near Tokyo's coast off Honshu. Despite being aware of the intense surveillance by Japanese aircraft, surface vessels, and shore-based radar systems, O'Kane willingly took on this mission. The danger was immense, yet the potential rewards were equally significant. Key shipping routes converged near Tokyo Bay, presenting numerous targets right within Tang's patrol zone. On August 10th, while patrolling off Omiyazaki, Tang made an attack run on a tanker but failed to hit any of its torpedoes due to evasive maneuvers by the target. The following day, Tang spotted 2 freighters escorted by 2 vessels. O'Kane fired 3 torpedoes at the larger ship and 2 at the smaller one. The bigger vessel disintegrated after what appeared to be an explosion caused by a torpedo strike near her boilers. As Tang dove deeper, the crew heard the 4th and 5th torpedoes hit the second freighter. A relentless barrage of depth charges followed for 38 minutes before Tang managed to escape with only minor damage amounting to 25 points on the damage scale. On August 14th, Tang engaged a patrol yacht using its deck gun, reducing it to rubble after 8 direct hits. 8 days later, she sank a 225 foot patrol boat by employing both gunfire and torpedoes. The 4th patrol clearly showcased O'Kane's tactical adaptability. When torpedoes were not viable, he utilized the deck gun effectively. In situations where convoys had too many escorts, he waited for solitary ships to appear. Even when Japanese aircraft compelled him to dive deep, he surfaced at night to continue his hunting efforts. This patrol added 6 more vessels to Tang's tally, although 3 of them were small patrol craft rather than cargo carriers. By September 1944, after 9 months in service, Tang had completed 4 war patrols and was credited with sinking 31 ships totaling 227,800 tons. Post-war analysis would later revise these figures to 33 ships amounting to 116,454 tons. Either way, placing Tang at the top among all American submarines for both number of vessels sunk and total tonnage destroyed. O'Kane stands as the highest-scoring submarine commander in American naval history. His crew also earned more decorations than any other submarine team in the Pacific Fleet during that time. Tang left Pearl Harbor on September 24, 1944 for her 5th war patrol. O'Kane requested to be assigned to the Formosa Strait, a narrow body of water separating Taiwan from mainland China, which was one of the most perilous areas in the Pacific at that time due to heavy mining and frequent patrols by Japanese forces guarding vital supply lines. Commander John Coy, who was heading a coordinated attack group that included Submarines, Silverides, Trigger and Salmon, invited O'Kane to join his Wolf Pack operation. However, O'Kane declined this offer and decided to operate independently. After refueling at Midway Island on September 27, Tang set out for the Formosa Strait. Following her departure from Midway, no further communication was established with any American bases until after the patrol's conclusion. O'Kane's actions during the patrol were later reconstructed using his report and accounts provided by survivors. On the night of October 10th to 11th, Tang engaged a Japanese convoy and successfully sank 2 cargo ships named Joshu Go and Itamaru. The submarine continued its operations until October 23rd, when radar detected a sizable convoy comprising 3 tankers, a transport ship, a freighter, and numerous escort vessels. For this engagement, O'Kane opted for a night surface attack, one of his preferred tactics. With her dark hull and low profile, Tang was nearly invisible in the darkness. Moreover, her radar provided an advantage that Japanese lookouts lacked. At midnight, Tang maneuvered into the heart of the convoy formation. O'Kane launched torpedoes as he approached the tankers. 2 torpedoes struck the nearest ship near its stack and engine room. A single torpedo hit the stern of the middle tanker. Another 2 exploded under the stack and engine space of the farthest tanker. The initial torpedoes detonated even before the final ones were launched. Every single one struck its intended target, causing either fires or sinkings. When preparing to fire at a tanker crossing Tang's stern, the lookout spotted an approaching transport trying to ram them. O'Kane ordered full speed ahead and maneuvered Tang between the transport and a burning tanker. The 2 Japanese vessels collided amid the confusion. As Tang escaped, she fired 4 more torpedoes from her stern, sinking both ships. The scene was chaotic, ships ablaze, escorts dropping depth charges indiscriminately, convoys breaking formation in panic. In just minutes, Tang had dismantled the convoy structure. Tang resumed patrol near Turnabout Island. On October 24th, around 2100 hours, radar picked up another large convoy approaching. As searchlights cut through the darkness and escorts swept the area, Tang selected her targets. O'Kane launched a series of torpedoes. A destroyer moving to attack exploded, either hit by one of Tang's torpedoes or friendly fire. Amidst the chaos, both a transport and a tanker were sunk. Japanese records later confirmed the destruction of Kogen Maru and Matsumoto Maru, totaling over 13,000 tons. By Yo 2:30 on October 25th, Tang had fired 23 out of her 24 torpedoes. O'Kane had just 1 torpedo left, offering him one final opportunity to further the most successful patrol ever achieved by an American submarine. Over 2 nights, Tang continuously attacked, survived multiple depth charge attacks, and sank a total of 13 ships. The crew was both wary and elated as they prepared for their final attack before heading home to a hero's welcome. O'Kane pinpointed another target, a cargo ship trying to flee the chaos. Tang positioned itself accordingly, and at 30 hours, O'Kane gave the command to launch the last torpedo, a Mark 18 electric weapon, marking the 24th and final shot of their mission. The torpedo glided smoothly into the water as it was ejected from its tube. However, an unexpected calamity unfolded shortly after. The missile abruptly breached the surface in a spray of foam and white water. Instead of heading straight for its intended target, it veered sharply to the left. beginning to circle back toward Tang. With mounting dread, the crew watched as the torpedo looped around. O'Kane ordered emergency speed, attempting to maneuver Tang out of harm's way. For 20 seconds, the submarine surged forward with frantic propeller movements. But the missile continued its arc, tracking the noise from Tang's engines. Exactly 20 seconds after launch, it struck Tang just after the torpedo room, approximately 20 feet away from where it had been fired. The impact was catastrophic. The warhead carried 575 pounds of Torpex explosive, far more potent than TNT. The blast severed Tang's stern and flooded 3 compartments immediately. Crew members as far forward as the control room suffered broken limbs due to the shock wave. The submarine's rear section plunged underwater instantly, pulling the rest of the hull down with it. 9 officers and men were on the bridge when the torpedo hit. O'Kane was hurled clear by the explosion and found himself in the water. First-class boatswain's mate William Liebold and radioman First-class Floyd Caverly managed to reach the surface as well. An officer escaped from the submerged conning tower without utilizing the escape trunk, an accomplishment that many deemed nearly impossible. Lieutenant Commander Lawrence Savedkin, the engineering officer, somehow made it out alive by swimming away from the wrecked submarine. When Tang struck the ocean floor, it was at a depth of 180 feet. 30 survivors crowded into the forward torpedo room with plans to use the forward escape trunk. They had been trained in escape procedures that involved using the Munson lung, a breathing apparatus designed for submarine escapes. Throughout submarine warfare history, there were no recorded successful uses of this device under combat conditions for escaping from a sunken vessel. The crew of Tang was about to attempt something that everyone believed was impossible. The escape trunk could only accommodate 8 individuals at once. At 180 feet below the surface, water pressure exerted immense force. Survivors had to flood the trunk, equalize pressures, open the outer hatch, and ascend slowly while breathing from the Munson lung. Ascending too quickly would result in decompression sickness, causing nitrogen bubbles to form in blood and tissue, potentially leading to paralysis or death. Panic could be deadly. Maintaining discipline was crucial. 13 men attempted the escape. 8 did not survive either inside the trunk or during their ascent. 5 individuals managed to reach the surface safely. Torpedoman 3rd Class Pete Narowonski, Torpedoman 2nd Class Hayes Trucker, Motor Machinist's Mate 2nd Class Jess Dilver, Motor Machinist's Mate 3rd Class Clayton Decker, and Lieutenant Junior Gregory Flanagan fought through the ordeal to survive for 8 hours in the water before being rescued. At daybreak, a Japanese destroyer escort picked up the 9 survivors. The same vessel had earlier transported wounded sailors from ships that Tang had sunk. Upon seeing the American submariners, these injured personnel subjected them to brutal beatings and torture. Later, O'Kane penned a strikingly human account of how his crew reacted with less animosity once they realized their tormentors were survivors of attacks that had left them burned and mutilated. The 9 men who survived, O'Kane, Liebold, Cayley, Savadkin, Narowonski, Truker, Dilker, and Flanagan, were transported to Japan and incarcerated. Initially held at the Afuna Navy Detention Center, they were later transferred to the Omori Prisoner of War Camp. Their treatment was severe, but they managed to endure it. Of the 70 individuals on Tang's crew, only 9 survived when the submarine sank. The remaining bodies are still aboard the vessel, which lies in the Formosa Strait within Chinese territorial waters. The sinking of Tang by her own torpedo during what would have been her most successful patrol ever was a tragic misfortune. She had already sunk 13 ships with a total displacement of 107,324 tons on this final mission alone, and throughout 5 patrols spanning 9 months. She sank 33 confirmed vessels totaling 116,454 tons. No other American submarine matched her level of success in such a brief period. Upon the war's conclusion in August 1945, O'Kane and his fellow survivors were released from Japanese detention centers and returned to the United States. Shortly after, he was nominated for the Medal of Honor. On March 27, 1946, President Harry Truman presented this highest military decoration to O'Kane during a ceremony on the White House lawn. The citation highlighted O'Kane's conspicuous bravery and intrepidity in Tang's final two attacks on October 23rd and 24th, 1944. Additionally, he received 3 Navy Crosses, 3 Silver Stars, and the Legion of Merit with V for Valor. Post-war, O'Kane continued his naval service by commanding submarine tenders, testifying at Japanese war crimes trials, and serving as commander of Submarine Division 32. He retired from active duty in 1957 as a rear admiral. O'Kane passed away on February 16, 1994, at the age of 82. To this day, he remains the highest-scoring submarine commander in American naval history. Tang was awarded 4 battle stars and 2 Presidential Unit citations for her World War II service. The submarine's loss was officially recorded when she was struck from the Naval Register on February 8, 1945. In 1985, marking 4 decades since the conflict's conclusion, surviving crew members convened for a reunion. 5 out of the original 9 survivors were still with us. They came together to commemorate their 78 fallen shipmates and pay tribute to a submarine that had accomplished feats many deemed unimaginable. The Japanese Navy's reaction to Tang's devastating strikes exposed significant weaknesses in its anti-submarine warfare strategy. As an island nation heavily reliant on maritime trade, Japan should have allocated substantial resources towards safeguarding merchant convoys. However, the Imperial Japanese Navy remained fixated on offensive operations and battleship combat. The Grand Escort Command, their belated initiative to organize convoy protection, was not established until November 1943, over 2 years into the war, and even then it received outdated vessels, inadequately trained personnel, and insufficient resources. By 1944, American submarines were sinking Japanese merchant ships at a rate of roughly 250,000 gross tons per month. That same year alone, 63 Japanese merchant ships totaling 2.7 million tons met their demise due to submarine attacks. Imports of essential commodities in Japan dropped from 16.4 million tons to just 10 million tons. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey concluded that the war against shipping was perhaps the most critical factor contributing to the economic collapse and logistical failure of Japanese military power. Tang's record was part of a wider submarine campaign that severely constrained Japan's naval capabilities. Of the 4 million tons of Japanese merchant shipping lost during World War II, American submarines were responsible for nearly 56%. Additionally, they sank 201 Japanese warships, including 1 battleship, 8 aircraft carriers, and 11 cruisers. This was accomplished by a submarine force that never exceeded 50 Thalanzen officers and enlisted personnel, with only 16 sergeants serving at sea. Despite representing just 1.6% of the United States Navy, submarines inflicted disproportionate damage on Japan's war-making capacity. The parallels between Tang's story and the broader American submarine campaign are striking. Both highlighted that technological superiority, aggressive tactics, and highly skilled personnel could yield devastating results. The Mark 18 electric torpedo used to sink Tang was also responsible for making her attacks so lethal. By 1944, American submarines were equipped with functional torpedoes, dependable radar systems, efficient sonar technology, and experienced commanders skilled in aggressive tactics. In contrast, Japanese anti-submarine forces lagged behind in both technological advancements and strategic planning. This disparity led to a significant imbalance on the battlefield. Tang's 3rd patrol showcased the capabilities of American submarines by sinking 10 ships over 36 days. Her 5th patrol, however, highlighted both the peak of success and the unpredictability of war when she sank 13 ships before being destroyed due to a malfunctioning torpedo. Captain O'Kane and his crew pushed submarine warfare to its limits, achieving results that seemed unimaginable at the start of the conflict. Post-war analysis revealed that Tang's confirmed total of 33 ships sunk placed her atop the list of America's most successful submarines for both number of ships and total tonnage. USS Tautog was credited with sinking 26 ships but had a lower overall tonnage, while USS Flasher achieved higher tonnage but sank fewer ships. Consequently, Tang held the distinction in both categories. O'Kane's cumulative tally of 33 ships across 5 patrols gave him the highest individual record among submarine commanders. His remarkable average of 1 ship sunk for every 10 days on patrol remained unmatched by any other commander. The tale of Tang is a testament to the extraordinary achievements of exceptional individuals operating under immense pressure. O'Kane's tactical innovations, rigorous training and discipline of his crew, relentless execution of attacks, and unwavering courage during depth-charge assaults combined to make Tang the most successful submarine in American naval history. Her tragic end, destroyed by her own weapon at the height of triumph, adds a layer of cruel irony to their accomplishments. Tang's crew knew they were unmatched. They trained with unparalleled rigor, fought more aggressively, and took greater risks than nearly any other submarine crew. Though 78 men perished in the sinking, their 9 months of combat yielded results that would have taken years for other submarines to achieve. Their performance demonstrated that skilled and audacious submarine warfare could deliver strategic blows far beyond the capabilities of their size or cost. The Japanese merchant fleet never fully recovered from the severe damage inflicted by submarines such as Tang. By 1945, the shipping routes in the region had become hazardous graveyards. Merchant ship captains refused to venture out without substantial protection. Convoy systems were abandoned due to their perilous nature. Essential raw materials stayed in occupied territories because there were insufficient vessels available for transportation. Japan's war economy crumbled not as a result of air raids, but through strangulation. The gradual severing of supply lines by submarines operating far from American bases. Tang's legacy extends beyond her combat achievements. She demonstrated the superiority of American submarine design and showcased the effectiveness of American torpedoes once they were finally reliable. Additionally, she proved that American submarine commanders could execute complex attacks with devastating precision. The Balao-class submarines, including Tang, set the standard for post-war American submarine development. Tactics like night surface attacks and aggressive convoy penetration, pioneered by O'Kane, became part of official doctrine taught at submarine training facilities. His focus on rigorous crew training and periscope practice also became standard protocol. In 1963, the Navy commissioned a new submarine named USS Tang SS 5663 in honor of the World War II vessel. This later Tang served until 1980, continuing to uphold O'Kane's legacy. Today, guided missile destroyer USS O'Kane, a DDG-77, carries on this tradition, recognizing the Medal of Honor recipients' remarkable achievements through courage and skill. The submarine campaign in the Pacific remains one of the least celebrated, yet most decisive operations of World War II. Unlike grand carrier battles or large-scale amphibious assaults, submarine missions unfolded with secrecy and silence. Submarines embarked on patrols from which they either returned safely or did not return at all. Successes were often classified information, losses mourned discreetly, and their strategic impact was fully understood only after the war's conclusion. Nonetheless, the statistics speak voluminous. American submarines accounted for over half of Japan's merchant fleet destruction and a significant portion of her naval force, with a comparatively small number of personnel overall. Tang's story within this broader campaign is remarkable for its condensed period of success. Over 9 months, 5 patrols, 33 ships were destroyed, with 78 lives lost and only 9 survivors earning a Medal of Honor. The numbers are both staggering and impressive. In just 9 months, Tang accomplished what most submarines took years to achieve, suffering the highest casualty rate among successful American submarines. Another notable event was when U.S. Tully was sunk by its own torpedo on March 26, 1940, marking it as the first American submarine to suffer this fate. While other submarines experienced similar issues but managed to survive, the Mark 18 electric torpedo occasionally malfunctioned due to mechanical failures in the gyroscope or propeller damage during launch. External factors like currents could also impact the trajectory of torpedoes. When Tang launched its 24th torpedo, no amount of skill or bravery could prevent a mechanical failure that sent it back towards the submarine. The survival of 9 men was nothing short of miraculous. 5 crew members used Momsen lungs to escape from inside the submerged vessel, a feat considered nearly impossible according to submarine training manuals. 4 others, including O'Kane, survived in the water for 8 hours after being thrown off the bridge or escaping the conning tower, showcasing remarkable endurance. All 9 endured brutal treatment and imprisonment by Japanese survivors for 10 months, demonstrating resilience equal to their combat bravery. Despite surviving Tang's loss, O'Kane went on to rise to the rank of Rear Admiral and served in the Navy for another 13 years, proving his capabilities remained undiminished. Reunions held by Tang survivors were emotionally charged gatherings where 9 men remembered 78 shipmates who perished. They recalled those trapped in aft compartments when the torpedo struck and couldn't escape before the spaces flooded, as well as others who died attempting to escape from the forward torpedo room, succumbing to pressure, drowning, or suffering decompression sickness during their ascent. The sailors who served aboard Tang during its 5 patrols were honored for their extraordinary achievements and ultimate sacrifice. At the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, an interactive exhibit named Final Mission gives visitors a glimpse into Tang's last patrol. Visitors step inside a recreated submarine, receive cards representing actual crew members, and are assigned roles within the vessel. As overhead screens display events from October 24 to 25, 1944, participants carry out tasks. The circular run of the 24th torpedo is illustrated. After exiting the simulation, visitors encounter a wall featuring photos of the crew and learn if their designated sailor survived. This exhibit serves as a poignant reminder that behind the statistics were real individuals who risked their lives in darkness. Tang's combat record remains unparalleled. In just 5 patrols, 33 ships were confirmed sunk. During its 3rd patrol, Tang sank 10 vessels over 36 days. On its 5th and final patrol, it destroyed 13 ships before being lost. Across all patrols, the submarine averaged 1 ship every 10 days on duty. These figures not only indicate significant destruction, but also represent a substantial disruption to Japan's war effort. Each sunken vessel carried troops, equipment, raw materials, or food essential for Japan's survival and military operations. Every sinking deprived Japanese soldiers of ammunition, factories of necessary supplies, and civilians of vital provisions. When multiplied by the hundreds of American submarines engaged in similar patrols across the Pacific, Tang's success underscores the profound strategic impact of submarine warfare. The silent isolation of these underwater missions effectively strangled Japan's supply lines and war machine. Tragically, Tang met its end due to a malfunctioning torpedo, a cruel twist that contrasts with its record-breaking achievements. Despite sinking more ships than any other American submarine and executing one of the most successful patrols in naval history, Tang was ultimately destroyed by an unexpected mechanical failure at a critical moment. The citation for Okane's Medal of Honor highlights his actions during the final 2 attacks but truly acknowledges 5 consecutive periods of relentless combat excellence. It highlights strategic advancements that revolutionized submarine warfare. It honors the crew's rigorous training, which resulted in an exceptionally proficient team in the Pacific theater. It pays tribute to the 78 individuals who lost their lives when Tang sank. Additionally, it celebrates the 9 survivors who endured a situation that should have been fatal. The Japanese convoy members rescued after facing off with Tang's crew exemplified how effective the submarine had been. Their anger stemmed from witnessing ships being destroyed, comrades losing their lives, and an enemy appearing out of nowhere to deliver catastrophic blows before vanishing. To those who observed Tang's operations, it must have seemed surreal for American submariners to inflict such damage and then survive the sinking of their own vessel. Tang rests undisturbed in the Formosa Strait, within Chinese territorial waters that prohibit exploration. The submarine lies at a depth of 180 feet, with its stern section separated from the hull due to the torpedo explosion. Her forward compartments house the remains of those who perished while attempting escape. This site serves as a war grave safeguarded by international law and practical inaccessibility. Tang's crew is forever on patrol in the waters where they achieved their greatest triumphs but also met their tragic fate. The submarine service did not build grand monuments for Tang, nor are there extensive memorials listing the 33 ships she sank. Her legacy is preserved through official records, O'Kane's books about Wahoo and Tang survivor accounts, and the recollections of families who lost fathers, brothers, and sons to her missions. The Navy commemorated Tang by naming subsequent vessels after her, ensuring that her name continues in active service. This steel and purposeful continuation of service serves as a lasting memorial rather than stone or bronze. Tang's story illustrates how success and tragedy frequently coexist in the realm of warfare. The submarine's most successful campaign was ultimately marked by its most ironic conclusion. The commander who earned the Medal of Honor managed to survive despite losing 78 crew members. The submarine credited with revolutionizing tactics met its end due to the very weapon that enabled these tactics. These paradoxes cannot be reconciled, but must be recognized as part of war's unpredictable and harsh nature. USS Tang unequivocally demonstrated that by 1944, American submarines had become strategic assets capable of making a significant impact. The vessels were dependable, their torpedoes effective, the tactics well proven, and the commanders bold. Over 9 months, Tang integrated these elements into nearly flawless operations, interrupted only by a mechanical issue that brought her career to an end. During this period, she sank sufficient shipping to severely affect Japan's overall war economy, destroyed enough enemy vessels to cause panic among merchant marines, and showcased such tactical prowess as to alter submarine warfare doctrine. Both the 78 crew members who perished and the 9 survivors of USS Tang accomplished something remarkable. They pushed a submarine and its crew to their absolute peak performance through 5 consecutive patrols, achieving results that remain unmatched even today, more than 7 decades later. Their legacy transcends mere statistics and tactics. It embodies what exceptional individuals can achieve when training, technology, and bravery converge in pursuit of a clear goal. USS Tang was the finest submarine of World War II, and her crew was unparalleled. The tragic conclusion to their story does not diminish their accomplishments, but rather adds a poignant reminder that even the best sometimes succumb to war's randomness and cruelty.